Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to draw and paint an Amaryllis flower, and these are those big kind of lily looking like flowers that are really, you see them a lot this time of year. So I'm going to start by making some ovals, and these will represent the kind of bloom area of the flower. And I've actually got one on my desk that I'm looking at that I really wanted to paint before it went by. Okay, so we got these almost look like 4 speakers, and I'm drawing these with a watercolor pencil, so I don't have to worry about the you know, the lines later, and so I can draw them dark enough so you can see them. I'm going to put the stem in here, nice thick stalk, and I'm going to put in some of these little leaves up here at the top. There's several of them just kind of dipping around there. And then there's this other little kind of petal that comes out from the center that isn't like a full bulb, it's just, I don't know, pops up there from the center. Very pretty, very ornate. These, this our flower, my husband picked up at a store for a couple bucks, and it was like starting to bloom almost already before we even planted it. It's really got big blooms here. Okay, so now we've got this is kind of like where our petals go around, and what I'm going to do is actually put on some individual petals. So they're pretty much like oh, kind of like curvy triangles here. I don't know how else to explain them, but but by having the that oval to begin with, it kind of just helps us place the petals around. If we have kind of like a point where they're going to end, I guess. Maybe it might even be easier for you to watch the tutorial and then try to paint again, then try to watch it again as you're painting. Might help. This is kind of a random tutorial. I've got a very busy month of January coming up, so I thought I'll get this one done and in the can. And then the stamens, which I'm not really, they're going to kind of come out from the center like this. I'm sure we'll probably lose them before we actually finish up here. So I'm going to see this flower here. We're just kind of seeing a few petals from the back because it's kind of tucked in behind there. So I just want to get a few of them on there, but not really spend too much time on that one. And over here, it's going to be very similar, except we're actually going to see the kind of trumpet area where it's coming here into the center. We're actually going to see that. See how it kind of looks like a trumpet there now? We've got this edge of a petal here. It's very musical and lyrical, I think, when I look at these. Maybe because they look like a trumpet, I don't know. I always feel like there's like some sort of rhythm happening when I'm drawing and painting my flowers, especially ones like this that are really, really full and bright. Now you could do whatever colors you want. This one happens to be a red amaryllis, so hopefully it will. I'll be able to paint it, and it'll look good on camera. Sometimes red is tricky. I don't know why. Like if I wear a red sweater or something on camera, it always just looks a little vivid. I don't know, clashy or something. And again, we have another one back here that is, we're just kind of seeing it from behind. Get that little petal folding over there. I should take a photo of this. I'll try to, yeah, I'll take a photo of this and put it on my blog. That way you'll have the actual photo I'm working from. And I'm working with a watercolor pencil, like I mentioned before, because I wanted to be able to draw pretty darkly for you. And I'm working actually on this watercolor canvas. You can see the back is raw, the front is primed, and this is what the package looks like. And I've had this for a long time, so this is new. This was probably like 10 years ago, so I don't know if it's still available. I think it is by Fredrix, but if not, you can always you could always use some absorbent ground. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just going to wet the background. Now the paint is not going to flow quite as well on the watercolor canvas, so it will give you a little bit more control. So I'm just here wetting the background so I can put some color in here. I think I'm probably going to go with some ultramarine blue and then gray it up a little bit. I like the colors, how I'm hitting the edges of the pencil. I kind of like how those colors are kind of coming to life there. And I like, when I do the background, I like to kind of integrate. First, I'm kind of dissolving any of the extra colors. I don't need any of those extra lines. But I like to integrate my colors at this point. So it's like, okay, I see I've got some green there. I'm going to have to decide what green I want. I'm going to decide all the main colors I'm going to use and somehow work them into the background. So that way, everything is harmonious. And I'm just using a big brush. You don't have to get fussy at this stage of the game. You know, have fun with it. You get more fussy and add more detail as you go along. Just try to keep it a little looser here. And all right. So let's see, for colors, I got my big palette here because I am working on something larger. I think that, well, maybe, you know what, maybe I'll use cobalt instead of ultramarine this time. Let's get some of that out there on my palette. I think I will use maybe permanent green light, which is more of like a springy green. Let me see, or maybe that one might come out. You know, I like that one better. It's very similar, but it just releases a little bit easier. I'm going to use some lemon yellow. I think burnt sienna for my brown. I like to have a little burnt sienna in there, especially when I'm using blue. And for my red, I think maybe I will use alizarin crimson because I know that's a very reliable color, and I can use that pretty well. So there I got my colors laid out, and yes, they're very vivid, but when we mix them together, we're going to have really nice colors. So I'm just going to start by throwing in some cobalt blue in the background here. Hope you all had a good holiday. We did, very relaxing. I like to kind of take some time off after Christmas, which I did, which you may not have noticed because I do pre-record a bunch of stuff and kind of get it on to schedule while I'm kind of being a lazy bum. I think we all need that kind of regrouping time. Going to the movies, just, you know, just chilling out. I'm gonna get in there. I didn't get that before. I'm gonna add a little bit of that brown right to that blue on my palette so it makes some gray. Okay, so you get the nice gray there, and I just, you know, just took that brown, swirled it over into my blue. Remember, we're getting all these colors into the picture right now so that everything's gonna match as we go along. Get some of that red in there too. Nice color, nice and cheerful. Now, you'll notice that I think when you're working on the watercolor canvas, it's not going to, the colors aren't going to flow as much. So that, you know, if you're having a hard time with your watercolors controlling the color, if that's giving you trouble, you may find that watercolor canvas gives you the look you're after. I think it's fun to kind of break out of your comfort zone and try different things. And that's what I'm doing here. Oops, I didn't get in that area there. That should be background. Get some green in there too, and some yellow. And if I mix the yellow with a little bit of that red, it'll really tone it down. And you don't have to put a ton in there. You just want to kind of introduce everything. And I'm leaving kind of like a rough edge around that. I don't know if I'll mat it and show the rough edge. Oops, my pencil out of there. Or if I will, or if I'll mat it covering that, but I like to have that option. You could also tape it down, but you'll notice the watercolor canvas, it doesn't buckle on you. So, so that's another advantage to it. So, you know, if you like your colors to flow a little bit more and not be so controlled, you might not like it, but it's something fun to try. And, you know, if this product isn't available anymore, which I think it probably is still, but if you can't find it, use some absorbent ground or some gesso on your canvas and that may work for you. All right, I'm gonna let this dry. Actually, you know what? Maybe I can go in. Let me go in and try to start painting that. If it starts to puddle around, then I can let it dry, but let me just go in there. I'm gonna take some of this yellow and go in there and liquefy my watercolor pencil. Now let me just see if I go. Yeah, it'll bleed a little bit, but not too much. I think I can actually go in there. I'm going to switch to a different brush. I'm going to switch to this Cat's Tongue by Princeton. You can use a round if you don't have that. I'm not sure if it's going to be, if the bristles are going to be stiff enough to really push around my pigment, but we'll try. Now these are the Albright Drawer pencils that I used, which they have a lot of pigment because I haven't really added any red to this. It's just the pigment that was from the pencil. So I'm thinking maybe the pencil, the Albright Drawer pencil on the canvas might be one of my new favorite things. I'm really enjoying that. And so the flower that I'm painting is very red, and so I don't really want to have that much red because it's going to be very overpowering. So that's why I'm kind of going in with the yellow and liquefying my colors. Plus I see a lot of yellow, and maybe that's just from my studio lighting, but it does have that kind of velvety look to it. So I'm going in the kind of highlighted areas and adding the yellow to it and letting it blend in with the pencil marks. And it's okay if some of your edges are kind of lost and found. I took the glare things off my lights and moved them up a little bit higher, and now I'm thinking I kind of wish I had the glare diffusers, or, you know, my fancy my fancy wax paper over the lights to soften them a little bit. But I think it's just because the background's wet, it's giving us a little bit of a glare. I can hold that for you like that. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the crimson on my brush here. Now somebody asked me, like, if they're using less expensive paints and the paint's dry, is it okay to spray the paints with water before you start? Absolutely. To keep a little, I like to keep a little spray bottle of just clean water on my table anyway. And anytime that you have that your paints don't want to release, yeah, give them a little spritz. I would let them dry out completely before you put the lid back on your palette, because that's how mold happens. You know, some people say, do I need to use distilled water? Can I use tap water? I use regular tap water. But if you're, you know, just make sure you let it dry out. Mold needs moisture to grow. I know, like with those twinkling H2Os, a lot of people have trouble with those molding on them. You just need to make sure you let them completely dry before you cap them up, and it's just a good practice for everything. Now the paints that I prefer are the M. Graham and Company watercolors, and they stay kind of semi-moist all the time, so they're always ready to go again when I'm ready to paint. So I really like that. They have honey in them as a preservative, so they don't mold, or they haven't for me anyway. So I just want to let you know I'm taking a little bit of that permanent green light. I'm going to add a little cobalt to it to darken it up. I'm doing that right on my palette. Well, I can give you a peek there. See? I like to show you because I know sometimes you guys have the tendency to put black in, and I honestly rarely ever use black, and I would say never in watercolors. I don't know last time I used black watercolor paint. If I did, it was probably for like a mixed media thing, or I was making my own stamping ink or something, because it's just, I don't think it enhances the look. And I'm going to go in and add a little bit of yellow there and just kind of let it bleed, and then I'm going to let this dry because I'm finding the glare is probably really hard for you to see, and I want to be able to get in and add some detail. So I'm throwing in my just pure yellow and letting it mix with whatever greens are there, and now I'm going to let it dry, and we'll be back when this is all dried up. Some observations that I want to share here, and I zoomed out by accident, I'll zoom in a little bit there, is that I noticed that you don't get blooms with the watercolor canvas like you would on the regular watercolor paper, and it takes a lot longer to dry, it doesn't wrinkle, and it just kind of gives you a whole different look, I guess, but basically the not blooming would be the big thing that I've noticed. This isn't completely dry yet. I did zap it for a few minutes with my heat gun, which would have taken care of it on watercolor paper, but wasn't quite enough to dry it out on the watercolor canvas. Something else I want to try is the lifting abilities. So I've got a tissue here and a damp paintbrush, and I'm just going to lift up some of that color that got a little too out of hand there, that green. So let's just see, I'm just painting over it with a wet paintbrush. And you can see it lifts up really well. So that's another thing, if you are looking for some paper or something with a really good liftability, you might want to try the watercolor canvas. I'm just going to lift that out there too, because that was kind of bright. I think I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the painting, since the background's dry. It's mostly dry. That's what I was concerned with. And I've got my angular brush. You could use really whatever you want. I just kind of want to get back in there with that color I just lifted out. Go in there with some of that nice bright pink. Now I think that I'm going to notice that it's going to lift up my paint here. See that? So you're going to have to be careful that it doesn't end up lifting paint that you don't want it to lift up. I think that it's probably going to be very similar to painting on a clay board. I haven't painted on clay board in years, but if I recall, that's kind of how it behaved. I'm going to go in here with some of this yellow green. It doesn't tend to, like the canvas, watercolor canvas is dry there, and it doesn't really want to bleed. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to completely wait for everything to dry in order to go back in with color. And see how I'm kind of stroking this yellow through? It's not really bleeding, it's kind of keeping a crisper line there. Let me zoom in a little bit and show you. See how it's kind of keeping a crisper line there at that where the yellow and the red meet. So it's just kind of something interesting. Let me grab a little bit of that bright green, the permanent green light, and just kind of see, I can kind of stroke that color in there too, and it's not bleeding too much. So that's just kind of something interesting that is that's a little different. I'm gonna go in and add that to that little leaf that I have going down there. So it's kind of nice if you like enjoy watercolor, but maybe you wish it had more of the control of oils or acrylics. I mean, this obviously doesn't. You still get that watercolor look, you know, with a little bit more control, and you know, being able to get in there and wiggle around and, you know, lift colors back if you need to. Look at that. I mean, that was very little effort. I didn't have to damage my brush or really scrub with my brush, and I got back to that color. I'm not you know, being paid by Fredrix. I just in fact, I'm not even sure if this product is still available, but I'm sure that somebody's making watercolor canvas, and I'm sure you could probably make your own too with some watercolor ground. So now I'm just kind of refining, going back, finding my my design again anywhere that it's been kind of wiped out. I'm just going in there and painting it in. I'll keep it zoomed in here while I'm still working on the center of this flower. Get this guy in here too. This little leaf over here. This might be a longer tutorial, I'm not sure. It's kind of like, I really like the painting at this stage. I could almost just stop and be like, you know what, I like that. I could just leave it being here. I'm actually, this leaf is really withered and dead on my flower, so I'm kind of using my artistic license and making that nice and vivid. You gotta do that sometimes. It's your painting. You don't have to paint a dead old flower if you don't want to. You can make it look a little bit brighter. This Amaryllis had 2 blooms on it, and one bloomed early last week, and it's already gone by and actually fell over. I had to use some chopsticks and stake the plant because it was really losing a lot of the definition. I'm going to darken that up on the edge with a little bit of the green plus cobalt. The same, you know, I'm not going into any new colors here. I'm using the same colors that I've been using all along. Right in there. Give that shadow right down there, and also just kind of loosely throw it in anywhere else I think it could benefit my design. And you know, a lot of times I won't even look back at the picture. I'll kind of be like, okay, this is where I'm going with this. This is, I'm referring back less and less because I want to get a certain attitude or movement. I think the water pump's going to start any moment now because this is vacation week. My kids are home from school. I just heard the water start to be run upstairs, so the water pump is probably going to begin any moment. I want some nice fresh color up here, so I'm going in with just my crimson. And there's the furnace. It is January after all, almost. What is it? It's December 29th, the day I'm filming this. There we go. And I'm just defining some of these petals. I kind of hate to lose all that white. I might keep some of it just because I like the freshness of it. I'm going to darken that petal in back because this petal back here is actually from this flower back there, so I want to darken that up a little bit. Have a little definition between that and that front petal. And also have this flower a little bit less in focus. I want it to be a little bit looser. This flower in back is quite loose just because it's, you know, you don't really see it that well, so I want to kind of keep it very, very loose. I'm going to add some of the cobalt to that red just to darken it. Cool it down, push it back. I'm cooling down the temperature. That pushes it back in the background even further. It separates it from that flower in the front. And I can lift out, and I'm kind of peeking around the flower because I can't hardly see it now. I can't hardly, oh my goodness. And then I think I'm just gonna lift off some, just lift it just to give it some texture, and then I'm gonna let that dry and move along over to this flower here. And let me just kind of start by liquefying those edges because I have watercolor pencil there. I like how some of the blue has leaked in there from the background. I think I'm getting too fussy with that little brush. I'm going to switch to my larger Princeton Neptune Cat's Tongue brush, which is a fairly new one for me. I haven't used it that much, but I kind of like how you can get a lot of different sizes and strokes from it. I want to make sure I keep that really cool trumpety shape here. But I also want to really keep that kind of loose look from how I sketched it. I really like how loose that was. I'm having a hard time talking today. Probably somewhat worried that the water pump is going to start blaring any second. Alright, I think I want something a little bit lighter up there, so let me just kind of start by lightening everything up just with a damp brush and then seeing how that looks. This is a really big blossom here. I like how, I don't know, musical it is. Don't want to lose all my light. Sometimes if I want a really dramatic color, I'll go right into the pot of color, just with a damp brush, and really pick up a lot of paint right there on the brush, and then just kind of paint it onto some paper that might be somewhat damp and somewhat dry, and then just kind of let the paper pick it up. I'm excited because painting the stamens on this, I'll be able to lift it right away to completely dry and blank paper if I need to. This little flower in the middle. This is kind of like painting with like a calligraphy brush. You can use it right on its end for really sharp lines. Go back over to this guy. Do the same thing with just with the damp brush and going in there and liquefying the edges where there's still some pigment from the watercolor pencils. Get that in there. Can lift up a little bit if I need to, lift up some of the color. My big goal is to keep it separate from that one in the back. I want this one to be defined and that one in the back to be kind of a blob. I've definitely succeeded in the one in the back being a blob, so yay me. And I think again I'm going to go in with my brush right into the pot of paint so I get that lot of like concentrated pigment on the brush. And hit the edges of some of these petals. Kind of letting the paint do all the work here. I'm a lazy painter. I'll let the paint do the work here. A little bit darker in the center. I think I want some other colors in here. A little bit of that cobalt. I gotta be careful because I did have some yellow in some of these, so I don't want it to get muddy. But I do want that kind of a charge of colors. I'm going to do some yellow over here just to bring it apart from that background. It's a cool yellow. It's like a lemon yellow, so it's not going to be as muddy as if I had like an orange yellow in there. And now I want to get the stamens in. I'm going to do that with, I think I'm going to try that with a Q-tip. Let me just see if I can just kind of blot those out. Yeah, I think I can. Might be a little damp actually to do that, a little too wet, but I'm going to try here. Let's blot those out really well, and the same over here. And I think I'll pause it while I draw this up one more time, and then we'll come in with our final details. Alright, now I'm going to play with kind of really strong darks and really strong lights. I'm going to try to throw in just a very economical amount of strokes here so I don't end up with too much crazy going on. I've got that cobalt and alizarin crimson mix here for these flowers in the back. I'm just going to turn my plant a little bit there. Back in with some straight crimson because that's really looking blue. Apologize for the furnace noise. Let's really kind of get that in there. And then, since we're working on the watercolor canvas, I can go in and I can use the pure color. I can wipe it right away to the bare canvas, which is something, you know, you can do that with watercolor paper, but I noticed that, I mean, it's really easy to pill the paper and get it messed up. Even on high quality papers, it's not going to wipe away perfectly. especially with some colors, especially using really bright colors. Alright, so let's go in with a stiffer brush, such as this little round, and wipe away some of the areas for the stamens, which will be over here. I need a dry tissue. Here we go, a paper towel. It's a nice versatility you can get. Look at that, I got that main stamen lifted right out. Lift out those other little ones there. And I really don't want to make it fussy. Alright, I'm going to go in with some of that yellow, just a touch of the permanent green light. And paint those little guys. And wow, they really glow against that, don't they? I don't know if you can tell because the paint's wet. Do the same thing. Actually, I'll paint. There we go. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to lift off some of the stamens. Easy to lift. Doesn't really show so much over here because I have a lighter area that I'm working in. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a paper with a Taklon brush because you will damage it. It just doesn't take very much effort to do it here, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to use a little bit of the crimson for the stems, because that's what they are. They do come out here. The stamens are more of a red. And then I'll go back in with the yellow here, just like I did over there. And just gonna dab those right on. Alright, now I just need to look at it and evaluate it for a minute. See what else we need to do. I feel like I've kind of lost quite a bit of definition in there, and I think I may be picking it up with the light. Kind of wipe it out there in the center a little bit. There we go. Now I've kind of drawn a little more interest in there, and I can go back in with the red and redefine the little veins in the petals. I feel like I lost it. And then just anywhere I feel like it needs a little extra definition, I can go in. Just with my red paint. Debating whether or not I want to speed up this tutorial, or if it's worth watching this for 30 minutes. Alright. Well, I guess if I'm narrating it live, you'll know I kept it as is. I feel like I just want to wipe out some areas and add a little more yellow. They got a little dark. I don't like to have too much monotone. I feel like there's like a little, it's like another little highlight going on in here. Even though it's in the shadow, there's like a little bit of a light creeping around. I want to get that in there with the yellow. I like the colors blending around a little bit. It's muddying, so I can lift it right up. I feel like it needs a little spark of green in there, though. You don't need as much water on the watercolor canvas, too, I've noticed, so keep that in mind. As you're working, you don't need to soak anything. And I love how it doesn't wrinkle. That's really nice. I feel like you can layer colors a little bit more if you see how well that yellow seems to just be sitting on top of the paper. It's kind of cool. Alright, so just I'm going to pause it for a minute and dry it and look at it and see if it needs anything else, and we'll be right back. Alright, I'm going to use this flat angular here to lift out the lines for the little stamens here because I feel like I lost them. I just did that over there and I was happy with the look. So I thought I would do it on camera to kind of show you how. So now we have those movement lines, and I feel like this is kind of a mess back there. The lines are too sharp for something in the background, so I'm just gonna wiggle this angular around and soften that all up. There we go. Things further away would be in the background a little bit more less defined. And I feel like that's not even really a good shape there, so I just want to kind of give it a little better of a shape. There we go. And maybe just tip this brush with a little bit of that crimson. You can see it's just kind of on the tip there. Can you see that? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I think you can see it's a little bit more there on the edge. And just kind of define some of the edges like that. So I'm wiggling it, so I'm kind of lifting off some of the paint and depositing some paint. So I'm depositing some paint on the edge, but lifting off some in the highlight area. So it's pretty much, you know, I go through and I just decide, well, what does that need? Something's not quite right, or what can I do to just improve it a little bit more? Here I'm adding a little bit of highlight and pushing the pigment around, which is, you know, a benefit of the watercolor canvas because you can lift quite a bit. And then I just want to strengthen the middle part in there, so I'm going to lift up, I'm going to grab some more dark, it's a cobalt plus alizarin crimson, and add that right there into the center to help give my flower a little bit more definition. And I think I'm going to call that good. Maybe just redo those stamens with a little bit of red because they are red and I really feel like I've lost the definition in there. And just a couple darker lines just to pull the eye into the center. And then I'm going to sign my name and call it good. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see the whole painting. Sign my name here, and that's something left on my canvas, on my palette. I'll sign it over here. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching today. I know it was kind of a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too boring. You can always watch it on twice speed. Of course, I should have told you that at the beginning. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video. If you like this video, I have lots of other watercolor tutorials on my channel, a whole playlist full of them, so you can check that out. I'll put a link below so you can find that as well if you're curious to learn more. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye now.